Let me just stop you right there. Now, I'm going to ask you a question that probably a lot of people would like to know. Being that you were on the executive board when these bylaws changes were made, did you vote to change the bylaws? Were you part of that process?
Yes, I was present during the process of the bylaws change. The bylaws change was originally thought about by Elias Husamuddin. He had this idea of things that he wanted to do in the future. Some of them were the satellite office. Another one was running unopposed for the union for the first time in history. Others were, he had different ideas on what he wanted to do. He proposed a bylaws change to the group. You got an idea of how our votes went. Mm-hmm. So, most board members really didn't have that much of an opportunity to provide their input or whatever. So he proposed a bylaws change to the group. We all said, okay, sounds like a great idea. He went with the statement that they were antiquated and they needed to be updated, and he wanted to mimic PD. And so everybody said, sounds like a good idea. So he proposed that change. He began working on it pretty much by himself. He made all the changes and whatnot, and then changes would come about, and he would, put them out to the board. Hey, take a look at this or whatever. The COBA went to the membership meeting and proposed the bylaws change pursuant to the bylaws. They gave copies of the change to every member, the way it says, and then they called a meeting to vote on those changes. At that meeting, it was in 2012. Benny Basio was the sergeant at arms at the time, and he asked me to assist him with the tally of the votes or whatever. So they waited and waited and waited to get a quorum. Finally, a quorum arrived so they can do business, and they voted on the change of bylaws, and it went through. Myself and Benny counted the votes, mm-hmm. and all the votes went in, and it was enough to change the bylaws. Now, I made a mistake. I made a mistake by not thoroughly reading the bylaws. And I think that maybe some of the other board members might have made the same mistake. We get so many documents and so much paperwork. A lot of times you skim through those documents because you kind of already know what they say. I should have read those bylaws in their entirety. And to be fair, after the bylaws were passed, no one thought anything of it until things started to happen. The election, disciplinary actions within COBA. And then you start to look at the bylaws and you see the areas that were changed and how they were changed. And you see that they were manipulated. These bylaws were manipulated. That election process was manipulated. They ran unopposed, not by coincidence, by design.
Now, let me just ask you something here, because this is the difference that I saw, when I started hearing about this election that was going to happen in June.
Yes.
Now, when I was on the job and I was a delegate, it was like free and open. Anybody could run for the office, and I kind of felt like the union welcomed that. If a person wanted to run, if they could get the support, that they should be able to run. And the current administration, which is Seabrook's, I always felt like they felt that, we're doing such a good job that we don't have anything to fear because the membership knows it. So there were rules put in place that just changed all of that.
Yes.
So talk to me about what rules are in place now, okay. And when you found out about it, what rules are in place now to kind of restrict people from running and made it so that the executive board largely ran unopposed except for one position, which is crazy. Yes. But how does that happen?
Okay. Well, the bylaws were originally formulated, like you said, anybody can run. Any correction officer in good standing with over 3 years on the job can run for a position on the executive board. If you can get a slate together and get 10 people to run against those 10 people, then you can run. And that's exactly what happened. Several slates would come out. Every election, there'd be 3, 4, 5, 6 slates running against the union.
Right.
And they didn't care because they felt that they were doing a good job. They had the resources. They were the incumbent. It's hard to beat the incumbent. So it was never an issue. These bylaws, after you read them and start to apply them, and election time started coming in, and people started to read and see what was required of them, it was crazy.
Now, what were some of the requirements that they put in place?
I'll give you. One of the requirements that most people got disqualified for is that you have to come to 10 consecutive COBA meetings. Now, I don't know about you, but there hasn't been 10 consecutive COBA meetings. From 2012, when the bylaws were changed, until very recently, maybe 2015, there were no membership meetings because the quorum was raised to 100. They would come out at 9 o'clock to the meeting. By 9:01, they would count. If there wasn't enough people there, they would say, this is not an official meeting. Thank you for coming out. Go home. And they would discourage the other officers that were trying to make it from even trying next time. And the people that were there, they certainly don't want to come out next time because it's ridiculous.
So they would do a count at 9 o'clock, and if people weren't, if there weren't 100 officers there, there would be no meeting.
Thanks for coming out. God bless you. Good night.
So if you got caught in traffic and got there a little late,
that's right,
the meeting was already over.
And let's be realistic. As correction officers, we're not really the most prompt people. A lot of times they're getting out of work, they go to get some breakfast, and then they come on their way.
And 9 o'clock is a very inconvenient time for a lot of people to get to a meeting.
So 10 consecutive meetings that you have to make is a ridiculous number. Plus the fact that, listen to this part, the executive board, the current executive board, is exempt from that requirement.
Really?
That's right.
They don't have to be.
They don't have to. It doesn't matter for them.
Oh.
But it matters for you.
Wow.
That's just one of the changes.
I mean, just to think of that, let us just wrap our heads around this, because if you're an officer, and say if you're on the wheel, or if you are like on if you're on rotating pass days, the likelihood of you being able to attend 10 consecutive meetings is almost impossible.
Well, let me go further.
Especially with the overtime that officers are working, you might plan to be there, but you might get stuck. You can't make it. So there's no exception made for that. Like if you get stuck or you're working,
no exception.
You just have to be there 10 consecutive.
That's right.
Okay.
Let me go even further to say that what you just stated about any officer coming out and trying to run that had to make the 10 consecutive meetings, that was also changed. Any officer cannot run for an executive board position like before. You must be a delegate first. You must be a delegate who's paid by the union and pretty much controlled by the union in order to run for a position on the executive board. So no longer can anyone say, I think I might be able to do it better than they do, and come out and put a slate together and run against them in a democratic election. No, it's controlled now. You have to be a delegate. And then, of course, the delegates have peer pressure amongst each other. So not only do you have to be a delegate, you have to have 20 to 25 signatures of delegates in order to run. So even if you are a delegate and you're outspoken and you're one of those rebels or one of those people that goes against the union, now you have to convince the other delegates to sign your petition to allow you to run.
Wow.
It's
and
like,
these are delegates now. As I said before, I was a delegate.
Yes.
And see, the union takes care of you. The union sent me for a stress test. The union sent me for training in Jersey, on the weekend. So you're doing pretty good.
Yes.
So I guess you kind of feel like you owe Seabrooks and the executive board a little something. So if they don't want this person to run, you kind of get the message that maybe I shouldn't sign that because it might be a problem for me down the road.
That's right.
So it's kind of diabolical.
Not to take away from all the delegates, because I don't believe all the delegates are that way. I believe that there are delegates out there that really, really genuinely want to help. But what you're saying is true. Yes, I get a nice Christmas bonus. They send me away. They pull me to the union when there's a vacancy. They give me little perks whenever I have a barbecue in my facility. They buy the food for us. They're good to us. So if someone says that they're going to run against them, maybe I don't want to be involved in that. Maybe I don't want to sign that, and that's very difficult, and that hampers the election process.
Right.
And those are just a couple of the things that were changed that really affected our election.
And, I kind of like wanted to throw the ball in your court about the vote and things like that. But really, this is not just about one executive board member voting for or against legislation that the executive board wants to put forth. This is about the officers also coming to the meetings and being involved in what the union is doing. Now, it's sort of like the officers are locked out of leadership positions in the union because of something that was voted on that they could have voted against, that they could have had an impact on. I remember when I was in the union, don't want to get into it too much, but we used to have our delegate meetings before the general meetings. They still do it that way?
Well, they rarely have delegates meetings, but yes, when they do have them, they have
right.
them.
And it would be more delegates at those meetings than it would be general membership officers at the general meeting.
That's the same.
And I would say, wow, it's more of us than it is the people out there that are coming from the jails. That has to stop. Officers have to come to these meetings. If you're off, come.
They make it difficult for you to show up.
Yeah, they make it difficult, but go to Ride Playland. You know what I'm saying? You'll see officers that you haven't seen in 10 years.
Or a barbecue.
That's right. They will be there.
Or the Heritage Feast.
Oh, yes. They will make time for that.
Or the Mets game.
They will.
Or Justin Timberlake, Jay-Z. I'm sorry.
Right. So, when there's a will, there's a way.
Yes, sir.
So, I just wanted to pause and say to the officers that are current, active officers, come to the meetings. Make sure that you know what's going on with your union. Don't just leave it to the executive board because you see what the results are now. Now, let me know. Now, let's get into how did you get dismissed from the executive board?
Okay. Here we go. So, the inquiry into the finances began, and then board members would be whispering in my ear saying, hey, listen, I heard Norm is going to run someone against you in the next election. And I found that odd, but I didn't dismiss it because since I've been up there, so many things have happened, and I'm like, no way this is happening, and it's happened. So I said, okay, I'm doing my job. I'm successful. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do for the members. I do grievances, PESH complaints. I've been very successful doing that. Lawsuits. I'm good. But they're like, listen, man, we have to make sure that we're doing our jobs the way they're prescribed. And that stuck out in my head. I started reading the bylaws and looking into it and realizing that I've been accepting my duties from the president and from the vice presidents on here. Go to the facility, make sure that facility is good. Go do this grievance, make sure that that's okay. And in the bylaws, there is a prescription for every single board member. Mm-hmm. This is your title. This is what you're responsible for.
That's right.
And I realized that I haven't been allowed to do the things that I'm responsible for, which, for my position, was to place in my files any important files of the association. My file cabinet was blank. Nothing was ever given to me to place in my files. My other duty was to release all meeting notices of all COBA meetings. I never released meeting notices. I mean, they asked me to do one meeting notice, and that was the special meeting when Lassonde and Blake were removed, and they had this big special meeting. That was it. I come to find out that they took the signature off of the paper that I signed for that meeting, and they used it for subsequent other meeting notices. That's not what it says to do. My other responsibility is to upkeep and maintain an accurate member list of the officers. I had no member list of the officers. Every board member had access via the computer to a particular person. For example, if I wanted to look you up, I would put your last name, Koonce, into the computer. Your name would pop up. I could view your address, your dependents, your personal information, your benefits information, things of that sort. I can do that singularly for one correction officer at a time. That is not maintaining and upkeeping an accurate member list. A member list is the name, address, and contact information of every member in COBA. And that just was not allowed. However, I'm noticing that other people have access to the member list. The comptroller, who's a civilian that's hired by COBA, has the member list. The printer, the printing company that sends out all the documents and whatnot, a civilian company, not vetted in any way, has the member list. So I said, if they have the member list, I have to be able to have the member list.
So what was your official title? Your official?
Corresponding secretary.
So the corresponding secretary is supposed to be responsible for correspondence with the officers and things like that.
No other board member.
And you don't have the list you don't have an updated list. You don't have access to a updated list of the officers'
That's true.
information as far as where they live and how to contact them.
And I requested it several times.
And that's
in
part of
writing.
your duties.
Yes, and I was denied. No. That in itself is a violation of the Constitution and bylaws. And, not for nothing, there were other board members that really didn't, that's up to them to bring that out or not. But I brought about my deficiencies, the things that I was responsible for. Now, if someone's running against you for election, in the next upcoming election, and you're not doing what you were prescribed to do in the bylaws, that's a pretty good reason to say, I'm better than him. I'll do better than him. So I began to push that issue. When I pushed that issue, he caught wind of it, and he basically assassinated me at a board meeting that he called an emergency board meeting. He brought the comptroller in, who I asked, who was my subordinate, and I said, look, when you get the opportunity, I need the member list. You just did the Christmas cards for the correction officers, so you have the member list handy. I'd like for you to take that member list, put it on a zip drive so I can migrate it to my computer. The list is way too big to just email to my computer. It has to be taken out and put into the computer. She said, okay. The next day, it was a federal inquest. He called this emergency board meeting. When I got wind of the meeting and they said, make sure you're there, make sure you're on time, make sure you come, they kept saying it over and over, and it gave me, it made me feel weird. I was like, something's weird about this particular board meeting. So I took the liberty of recording it, which Norman Seabrook, at a prior board meeting, he would record them on his iPad or whatever, and he welcomed the board. Listen, I'm going to record this meeting. You guys can record it if you want to as well. So there was really no prohibition on recording it, and I did so. Thank God I did. That recording I actually opened up a website with some information and documents. That recording is on the website. It's www.ubethejudge.co. If you look at any of my Facebook page or anything like that, it's on there.
Say that again so everybody can...
www.ubethejudge, no spaces, .co, not com, .co. You go on there, you scroll down, and the actual recording of the incident that took place for my removal is on there. He basically went irate and made it seem like if I was stealing from the union in some way. He told me to get my stuff, get out of the office, you're not welcome back here anymore, we're taking all your things, and it just dismissed me and sent me back to the command. No vote. No, I'm still a dues-paying member of this union. No due process whatsoever. You're out of here because I say so, and that's that. Shortly after that, he put out a letter to the membership saying that I was trying to get their personal information, their social security numbers and things of that sort. That's not what's on the member list. And that's not what I sought or why I sought it. And I never got the member list. So I really didn't commit anything. This guy made it seem like I committed this horrible act. And he went out and bought life-proof policies for every correction officer to further his... Wow. Yeah, I mean, this guy tried to annihilate.
I didn't know what it was for, but I mean, maybe I should have read it, but yeah, we got the life lock for a year. Because
I sought counsel after that because, I mean, I'm a dues-paying member. The lawyers wouldn't return my call. The board members wouldn't return my call. I was an outcast, just based on his word. And so I got an attorney. We put together an Article 78. We submitted our papers. In those papers, I identified that $5 million transaction as one of the many things I identified that were wrong with the union, that caused me to ultimately be removed. That caught the attention of U.S. Attorney.
Hold on,
Yes.
1 second. Was there a vote at that meeting of the executive board members to get rid of you, or was it just Norman saying
Silence.
he's out?
Silence. The board was silent. And on the recording, you'll hear me at the end scream on the executive board for their silence.
Okay.
Because they would talk about it all the time. They would say how he's a tyrant. They would say all these things and how they can't stand the way he does things. But they remain silent, and they always remain silent. And me not being silent doomed me to my fate.
All right, before we get into the
Yes.
the U.S. attorney and things like that, I just want to be clear on this. You're the corresponding secretary. You were trying to fulfill your obligations by getting this list.
Yeah.
Because you were trying to get this list, you were dismissed. Do you think that he felt that you were trying to get the list because you wanted to mail stuff to us and let us know that you were running and tell your case?
Maybe that's what he felt. And let me just be clear. My removal had nothing to do with the list. My removal from this union had nothing to do with the member list that I was or wasn't entitled to. It had nothing to do with stealing people's social security numbers or not. That was smoke and mirrors. My removal from this executive board was because he knew that I knew about that transaction and that I was not letting it go. I was looking into it. I was making attempts to find out the information, and he had no choice but to get me out of there because he knew my character. He knew who I was, and he knew that I am relentless when it comes to addressing issues for correction officers.
Wow. Because, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to be honest. When I first heard you saying, and I didn't even know who you were, but you were saying that $5 million was invested in a hedge fund. All I could think of was like, you know what? There's some type of personal thing between him and Seabrook, and he got dismissed. Now he's trying to get back at Seabrook, and it's getting kind of ugly. So he's saying these things, but I didn't believe it. I don't think anybody believed it.
I could see where you would think that.
Okay.
And most people did think that.
Right.
Listen,
let's be honest. Most people.
The guy got rid of him.
Exactly.
He's mad. He's trying to get back at him.
Right.
Whatever.
It happens.
But
you were telling the truth.
Yeah.
And it came to pass that he not only sent $5 million of our funds to this hedge fund, but $20 million.
Yes. It started out as 5.
At that point, you had our full attention. And I'm sure most of the officers that are following this now are totally awake and they're totally watching what's happening. And, okay, so continue with the investigation.
All right. So, and let me just say this. I've been on this job for 27 years. I've been a union advocate since 1996. I joined the ESU to help correction officers. I joined the union to help correction officers. I am a correction officer. I have an impeccable record. I've been very successful in addressing and representing correction officers with my union capacity. No way do I mean them any harm. And I, at my own peril, risked everything to address this issue that I knew was wrong, among others. But this one in particular was damaging to correction officers. So I went all out, no matter what. Spent my own money on attorneys because they did not reimburse me for my attorney's fees. Made my own flyers, made my own videos, opened up my own Facebook account, my YouTube videos that I was making. I have 2 websites that I put together. I go to the bridge, I hustle, I give out the information. We do the I don't want to say protest, the rallies.
Right.
I do this from my heart. And I risked everything to address this situation, and it's like, it appears to me that a lot of people out there hate me for it.
Well,
they can't stand me for it.
You know what? Because people like you don't always come along, so everybody's skeptical. But the facts are bearing out that you were telling the truth. And, as far as I see it, the reason why I wanted to interview you is because I see you as a transitional figure in correction, like on a historic level. As far as the COB is concerned, what you're doing, you could have just sat back and just played the game and just kept your perks, kept your job, kept your status, and just let everything just go on like it was going on. But you took it upon yourself to inform us and let us know what our union is doing, and that's something that I'll be in debt to you, and most officers that are watching this probably will be in debt to you. Of course, there's going to be some that don't understand, and some think that you have some ulterior motive. You may have, I don't know, but the end result is that now we know, and that's a good thing. All right.
I appreciate that.
So.
And the way things are going for correction officers is my motivation for continuing to do what I'm doing. I've never seen it this bad in 27 years of service. I've never seen assaults the way they're occurring, officers being held down and cut, officers being splashed with chemicals in their face, female officers sexually assaulted by the inmates, splashed with urine and feces. 8 ESU officers, first time in history, splashed with urine and feces. We've never had it this bad. These officers are suffering. They're in there doing astronomical overtime. That's all they talk about, is how they can't get any sleep. Sleep deprivation is impairment. Correction officers drive home impaired every day because of the mandates of overtime. Those impairments occur while you're on the job and when you're off the job. You're at work, your motor functions suffer, your decision-making skills suffer, and then the second you make a mistake, they want to kill you for it. I can't leave this job this way. I could leave. I have my service summary letter in. I know what I'm going to get. My retirement looks great. I'm going to be okay. I can't leave this way. I cannot leave this way. And I don't see any help coming from anywhere that's successful. My father always told me, if you have the knowledge and ability to help someone in trouble, you have the obligation to do so. I have the knowledge, experience, and ability to move us forward and make the changes we need made. I can do it. I can't just leave this job. I have to go 100% to try to fix what I can fix for us, because we're in bad shape and nothing is being done.
Right. I mean, you're absolutely right. Those of us who are retired know that when we left the job, most of us, we had a certain degree of respect from the inmates and from the city and from the department, that they knew that we were doing a good job. The inmates respected us, and we were handed, when we came on, that degree of respect. And we're sitting back now, we're watching all of that just go out the window. We see people getting disrespected. We see female officers getting assaulted, getting their nose broke. We saw Ray Calderon last year, and it's been a year. November will be a year. His face was cut. He got, I think, 20 some odd stitches in his face, and he said that if he had not fought these guys off, they would have put him to sleep, and God knows what would happen. We've seen a chief, assistant chief of the department, get arrested, get convicted, and now is in jail doing 6.5
with 7 other officers.
You know what? And I think we should take a minute and actually, talk about this, because this is new and this is very serious.
Well, I certainly know about the case. Every one of those people that were currently incarcerated were friends of mine. That use of force is no unusual use of force that correction officers would say, oh wow, that's different. that is a use of force that I have had 10 times, 20 times in my career, and everybody else has had. That was unremarkable when it came to the type of use of force that it was. They were convicted of gang assault because there was more than one person involved. The emergency service unit does not respond to things by themselves. You will not see one ESU officer respond to a situation and deal with it. We deal with things in a group. The rapid response team goes out and are responsible for addressing anything that happens in the department. And they did so. These inmates are gangs in the street. The department incarcerates them as gangs. They put them, all the Bloods, we're going to put all the Bloods in one housing area. We're going to put all the Crips in another housing area. They're enabled to act as a gang even after they come to jail. You have one officer on post, 30 Bloods in the house. How are they supposed to maintain order? And then when anything happens, they act as a gang. They assault officers as a gang. They assault other inmates as a gang. When was the last time you heard inmates being arrested for gang assault? I haven't.
I've never heard.
But these ESU officers and chief were arrested, suspended, and they were convicted of gang assault.
Yeah. Chief Alicio Perez Jr.
Yes.
Now, somebody at the bridge, when we were at the bridge Tuesday, told me that this chief had left. I don't know if that's true or not. That he had left the job and he came back because they needed help trying to deal with some of the violence on Rikers Island.
Yeah,
Do you know anything
retired.
about that?
He left the job, and then they called him back and said, "Look, we need you. We have a position for you. You can help." And he was one of those individuals that was proactive and didn't take garbage from the inmates. Look, the Department of Correction is all about care, custody, and control. Those are our three main phrases in our job title. We have lost control. And the reason we have lost control is because of the little decisions made here and there that affect us, that over time come together and cause this toxic situation. Let me elaborate. We have no age limit to come on this job. We have no physical requirement to come on this job. The punitive segregation was the main non-confrontational tool to use against violent inmates. It was a deterrent for their violent acts. Their bright idea is to take it away from us, thus allowing force to be the only method.
So, have they done that? Have they taken away the punitive segregation for adolescents, right?
Yes, completely gone for adolescents.
So, the people that slashed Officer Calderon, they were 18 and 19 years old.
Those are the most violent inmates in our department, are the adolescents. I mean, look at Facebook. Look at all these violent acts that they film on Facebook and put on Facebook. Most of the people that commit those acts are adolescents. They come to jail, they don't just stop, but they have this movement that, oh, poor kids, they were brought up the wrong way and, they need help. Oh, yeah, I get it. So get them help. Give them help.
Right.
But they are incarcerated. There has to be rules. There has to be regulations. There has to be enforcement of those rules, and that's not occurring.
Right. How can they be a perpetrator when they get arrested and then become a victim as soon as they cross the bridge to Rikers Island? Now we're treating them like they're the victims.
Absolutely.
When they've hurt people in the community. Yeah, so I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think that something definitely needs to be done. And what was done to the chief, the captain, Gerald Vaughn, and 4 officers. The chief, if you didn't know, Chief Alicio Perez got 6.5 years. Captain Gerald Vaughn got 5.5 years, and 4 officers, David Rodriguez, Tobias Parker, Jose Parra, and Alfred Rivera, all got 4.5 years. And then there were 2 officers that got 5 hours of community service. And like he just said, these types of incidents, all of us who've been in correction have been part of uses of force And we know that we don't become part of these things if it's not necessary. So there was definitely a need for them to take action, and this is the result. This has a chilling effect throughout the department now. So this is...
They did their job. And at the end of the day, if you made a mistake while doing your job in the course of your duties, then okay, get disciplined for it. I get it. You know, but to be convicted and sent to jail for those amount of years, and the inmate that was involved committed a heinous act. He got released, he committed another heinous act, and he's back in our system already. This is a recidivist. Okay, and these individuals were professionals that worked for our department for many, many years. And the first mistake that was made was elevated to such a level to incarcerate them and send them upstate. That is a great miscarriage of justice.
And no disrespect to police officers, my brothers and sisters in blue doing their jobs, but you have incidents where people have died, and the courts or the DAs have seen fit to say this is part of their job, this is in their line of duty, this is an unfortunate event, but we're not going to penalize this person. And there's been people that have died. Yes. Now we have an incident where an inmate was just hurt, and we have six people that have gone to jail for it. And this guy is a known gang member, and
there's a disparity
yes,
between NYPD and correction.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that disparity has something to do with the fact that we are predominantly Black and Latino organization. That's a distinct possibility, but there is certainly a disparity between the two of us, and it seems like the book is being thrown at correction officers. We're being demonized. Law enforcement in general is being demonized by the public.
Now, what role does the union play in that? Because, all right, do we have the same attorneys as PD, or do they have better attorneys than we have, or, you know, I don't...
The attorneys that these members have.
I know that's not just your areas.
I have a unique perspective.
Okay.
The attorneys that these officers had ultimately convinced them to select a jury trial in the Bronx. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been around for a while, and every time I've gone to a Bronx grand jury when it comes to a weapons recovery or some type of an incident, they're not very partial to law enforcement. So I, as a person, would definitely be hesitant on taking a jury trial there. These attorneys, one of Kohler and Isaacs, and they selected a bunch of conflict attorneys. They were $100 an hour attorneys, and they gave them $100 an hour worth of advice and representation. And at the end of the day, these officers were doing their job. Norman Seabrook has a multi-million-dollar law firm at his disposal, and he knowingly committed acts against the same membership that's paying this multi-million-dollar law firm for his defense. Why such a disparity? I spoke about the disparity with PD and corrections. Why such a disparity in the representation, the legal representation of Norman Seabrook as opposed to the legal representation of these officers that were doing their job? Okay?
Interesting.
That's my issue with that whole subject.
Right. I get it. As far as the Seabrooks situation, you know, we're back there. Now he's being charged with receiving money from Platinum Partners hedge fund. Now, I know you probably don't know whether he says, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He says that he didn't do that, that he's, you know, I guess being framed or whatever. I just want to also tell you that people that don't know, Seabrooks invested $20 million in Platinum Partners hedge fund, and just last week, Platinum Partners hedge fund just declared bankruptcy, filed for bankruptcy. And then just a few days ago, there was an injunction, I think by a judge in Texas, that is investigating some sort of fraud that they had with an energy company down here in Texas, and he's freezing all their assets. So What do you think is the likelihood of us recovering that $20 million from our funds?
Okay. First
the
of all,
union's funds?
Norman Seabrook's investments and the way that he made them was the first time in history that COBA has ever taken annuity fund money and invested it in such a high-risk, dangerous hedge fund like that. The annuity fund is the $3 a day for every correction officer for every day that you're on this job. And that gets invested in the union. That's supposed to be put in a stable, interest-bearing account that is safe, so that when you retire, you will have a little bit more than what you had when you started, and that benefit is yours. He basically took that money without approval from the executive board anyway, and just put it into this fund where he received benefits from. He received money and accolades from making each one of those investments. I don't want you to think that, hey, Norm, he just made a bad decision and put our money in this account, and give him the benefit of the doubt. He just made a mistake. This wasn't a mistake. This was personal gain from money that wasn't yours, that was entrusted to you and the executive board to protect. You did not do that. You failed to do that. You violated your fiduciary responsibility, and you invested this money into this company and allegedly received kickbacks as a result of it. So I want that to be, clear.
Right. So
it wasn't just a mistake.
Right.
So the money now, the company claimed bankruptcy. That money is liquidated. Okay. The chances of us getting that money back in its entirety is probably 100% that we're not going to get the full money back. If we get maybe $5 million out of it, after 5 years of legal back and forth, then I think that's a lot. That money's gone. The chances of us getting that money back are ill to none. And Elias keeps stating that the money's safe and it's there. It might be on paper that you invested it in Platinum Partners, but Platinum Partners is liquidated now as a result of this investigation, this federal investigation. So we're in trouble. And our annuity money, when you go to get your payout, you're not going to get your full payout. Now, Elias said he was going to send out individual statements to each one of us last Friday, and I haven't gotten mine. I don't know if anybody's gotten theirs.
I haven't gotten anything.
But I'm working on something now. I can't really disclose the full statement, but I'm working on something now that will assist us to recuperate that money that was.
Well, when the time comes, when you're allowed to talk about it, we'll come back.
Yes.
And we'll do this again.
Absolutely.
In terms of Seabrook's, his departure from the union and his suspension from corrections and his court case that's going to play out, we've gotten a new president. Elias, who is the second in charge, first vice president, now is the president. How do you feel about what he's been doing thus far? I know you've answered some of that, but that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask. What is your take on what he's doing? Has he done a good job thus far?
As far as the presidency goes, there is no president of the union. He ran for election, he was arrested, people voted, and that position was never filled. Elias is acting as an acting president. He is, pursuant to the bylaws, fulfilling the president's obligations in his absence. So, how do I feel about that? I feel that I know Elias, and I know every board member. I know what they're capable of, I know what they're not capable of. To me, he is a watered-down version of Norman Seabrook. Norman Seabrook certainly had the gift of gab. He had that persuasive quality that he would go out and put a room in awe of him. And he'd tell jokes, and he'd be charismatic, and he would be able to bring his point across, even if people couldn't see his point exactly. I don't believe Elias has those qualities. He's a little bit different. I don't think he's doing a good job. They have not been successful yet. And listen, don't get me wrong. I've asked them to sue the department. I've asked them to sue the Board of Corrections. Go to these meetings. I mean, he knows. And now they're starting to do it. Now they're at least giving you the impression that they're doing it. We're going to sue. We're suing this one. We're suing that one. Lawsuits take time. a lot of time, and there's no immediate solution to our problem that's happening right now. I have not seen one successful action. You might have filed a lot of stuff and written a lot of documents, but no successful action has been taken. I haven't seen not one rally thrown by the COBA. I haven't seen anything but talk and rhetoric. Now, do I believe that there's things that can be done immediately to help our situation? Yes, there is. There are things that can be done immediately to help us, but those things are not being done. But let me assure you that several of those things I will be doing on our behalf. And one of them is the rally. The next rally will be on November 16th at 6 o'clock in the morning at the bridge. And I encourage all correction officers to come out and support each other at that rally. The next union meeting November 16th is the next union meeting.
I think the 10th is when you want it to rally, right?
The 10th is the rally. So the rally will be November 10th, and the next union meeting will be Wednesday, November 16th. I encourage all members to come out, be vocal, and take a stand for yourselves and each other, and make the changes that need to be made. I mean, this union is the power of the membership. The power of the association rests with the membership at a general membership meeting. The power is yours, which is the reason why they really don't want to have those meetings, and they really don't want you to come to those meetings, because you have the power there. Now, motions were made at the last meeting. A petition was turned in pursuant to a bylaws change at the last meeting. They ignored all of this. They pushed it aside. And in pushing it aside, they're pushing the membership aside and the membership's wants aside. That's not the spirit and intent of a union. Now, I mentioned earlier about the bylaws. I made a mistake by not reading them thoroughly. I made a mistake by not seeing their application. But as time went on and you can see the way they're applying them, these bylaws are a manipulation, and they were a mistake. And I am ready to correct that mistake and change them back to the way they were before. They certainly don't want that to happen, so they're going to do anything in their power not to allow it. But these members have to come out and stand up and be vocal.
Now, that's a great message, and I agree with what you're saying about coming to the meetings. You definitely have to come to them. One other thing about the rallies, like I was at a rally, your rally Tuesday.
Yes.
The pleasure of meeting you at that rally. I noticed that there were a lot of retirees there. There were some active people that were there, but I would like you to speak to the active people, because I think that some of the active people that are active, in correction right now, when they were coming across the bridge, coming off the bridge, and they saw us out there, they kind of, didn't want to acknowledge us, or they didn't want to stop and stand with us. Can you speak to that? Because they may be afraid that there may be some repercussions if they come out and represent. Is it okay for them to come out and stand with you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me say this. First of all, the retirees are coming out because these retirees care about you. They care about corrections. They have family members, like you mentioned earlier, that are still members of the department or are new members of the department. They care. They want them to be safe. They want you to be safe. And they stop what they're doing to come out and support you. Let me just say this. This is a rally. This is not a job action. People have the misconception that this is a job action and it's prohibited by the department. That's not correct. This is a rally of correction officers. We're coming together. The only violation that can occur at this rally is if you come out on duty. You cannot be on duty and be at this rally at the same time. No way. And I ask everybody to make sure that they're not on duty. You can be active at this rally. You can be retired. You can be a supervisor. You can be friend, relative of a correction officer. Anyone can come out to this rally. This rally is to raise awareness in correction officers, DOC staff, the general public, the media, everyone, to let them know that there's something seriously wrong and our safety is at risk. We are here, and we do it at 6 in the morning so that these officers pulling in at 7 o'clock can look at us, and that could boost their morale a little bit, and they can see, listen, these guys are out here for me. Wow, they're out here for me, to protect me. That's why we're there. That's why we're raising awareness. The media comes out. They want to know what's going on. What are you guys doing? Why? This is a great way to get your message out there to people. And the rally is a good thing. You cannot be on duty. You can be active. You can be a new officer. You can be on probation. You're allowed to come out there on probation. You just can't. We can't block the flow of traffic. We can't block the bridge. That's where it starts to get funky. But we're not doing that.
Do they have the right to speak? Can they speak?
To the media, you mean?
Yes. Can they say how they feel?
Let me just tell you.
What would you advise them?
Rule, regulations, op orders, directives, none of them supersede your constitutional right.
Freedom of speech.
First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble. You're entitled with an inalienable right to assemble and speak. And certainly if you speak of issues that affect your safety and welfare, these are issues that affect our safety and welfare. We are absolutely entitled to do that. And I have attorneys on standby to address anybody that attempts to say different or take action against anyone out there. So feel free to come out, express yourself, hold a sign, speak to people, talk to each other, get information. A lot of people don't have information. I myself am a wealth of information. Let's talk. Let's talk about the bylaws and what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. Let's talk about the rules and regulation, op orders, directives, the things that protect you. The OSHA and PESH have sanctions in place and safety features in place for you. You're supposed to be able to work in a safe work environment, and your employer is supposed to provide that for you. And that's not happening. We need to come out and we need to support each other. Everybody driving over that bridge, if you're coming on, just feel good and know that those people are out there for you. They're fighting for you. If you're coming off, know that they're fighting for you. But stop. Stay 15, 20 minutes. Talk to us. Let us know that we're not the only ones out here. That's my message.
That's a great message. And while you're saying this, it makes me wonder, it makes me think that, say like if you were working in a factory and people were getting hurt at the factory, you know what I mean? They didn't have safety equipment or the equipment was dangerous and people were getting cut and they're losing limbs or getting their face cut.
Right.
I mean, you would expect people to know about it and people to take action about it. We have sort of like the same conditions going on in correction right now where people are getting hurt, people are getting choked, people are getting cut. People are, hopefully we won't have to be out there because someone got killed. That's what we're trying to avoid. So come out, and I didn't see it when I came out on Tuesday. I didn't see it as a divisive thing. I wanted to see everybody. Be honest with you, I was hoping to see somebody from the COBA there. Right. I wanted all of us to be together. Right. But I hopefully it'll evolve into that everybody can see, put all their differences aside and see the importance of all of us coming together and fighting this violence that's going on against staff. All right, this has been a great interview. So I got a few things that I wanted to get to before we end.
Sure.
All right. Now, you've already gone beyond the call of duty in terms of your service to the officers. You're in your 27th year.
Yes, sir.
All right, like you said, you can just put your papers in and just go fishing, right?
Yeah.
Now, what do you plan to do? I mean, you may not know yet, but...
I have a plan.
Okay, so let's hear it.
All right. My plan is this. My plan is to do everything in my power to ensure that change comes about for correction officers. Change within the department, change within the union. I'm going to take necessary steps within the union to attempt to become part of that union again. I believe that I can do a great service for correction officers if I'm able to do so. I don't see that being done now. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I think there should be a special election. I think there should be changes within our bylaws. I think that the opportunity that should have been granted to any correction officer to run for a position on the executive board should be granted. And I believe that this union should be called a farce. We don't have a president. Our president was arrested. Our executive board is under federal investigation, criminal federal investigation still. Our attorneys are under criminal federal investigation still. How are they being allowed, especially since they've authorized these transactions and allowed this $20 million to be removed from us? How are they still being allowed to operate on a daily basis? It's amazing to me. And I'm going to raise awareness, and I'm going to continue to do what I have to do and take the necessary actions to make sure that we have change. And at the end of the day, if there is an election and other people are put into those places, then you will have that change. Whether I'm part of that equation or not, you will have that change. I'm passionate about this. I'm a correction officer just like you from the trenches. I work in ESU. I've worked in ESU for a long time. I've been a delegate for a long time, been a board member. How is it that you have an election and a person with 27 years on the job, 14 years as a delegate, 5 years as a board member is deemed ineligible to run for a position on the executive board? Never seen it in my life. And again, we are suffering. And I intend to do everything in my power to ensure that that suffering ends. And at the end of the day, if that change is made and I'm not part of the equation, then I will leave. If I am part of the equation, then I intend to do at least one term in office and change what we need to be changed. And I guarantee the department will respect the COBA again. The inmates will respect correction officers again.
Well, I think that says it all. So we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Officer William Valentin, for taking out the time
Anytime.
to address some of these issues. Like I said before, when you want to speak about something else, just let me know. Correctional officers in the news will be there. And thank you.
I appreciate this opportunity. And honestly, without you, I think that a lot of the membership's questions wouldn't have been answered. I'm here anytime. I'll be more than happy to do this 10 more times if you want to. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.